Good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze. Welcome to this Monday morning. I apologize for the slight delay, about 15 minutes behind schedule. That's because we have been working on correcting some of our streaming technology and software, and it's all quite technical, and Nathan knows all about it, and I don't. But if you go over to worshipify.com, you should be able to see that we are going live right now. It's been a while since we've been going live on Worshipify, and that is just because some technical details, but now we are going live. The great thing is, sometimes we can venture off into some categories and topics that YouTube doesn't like, all right? Worshipify is the fallback, all right? So if we get kicked off of here in just a little bit, then you can just go over to worshipify.com and you can finish watching the show. Now, another major thing, just an update. You'll recall back in the day, we had some technical difficulties trying to do the dual stream to both Worshipify and YouTube. And that was because of some of the coding that was going on with the dual streaming software. The good news is, I think we have that corrected. All right, Nathan White, our technological warfare expert, has been working hard to get all of this to work together, okay? And so now we should be going good. It looks like we have a really good, strong connection here. And so I'm excited, okay? Hopefully you're excited. We are back to business as usual. I know on Friday I kind of gave an old switcheroo on you, didn't do a live show. Instead, we did our Last Days series. But I do want to remind you, after all, you are tuning in to my show. And hey, if I want to take the time to plug my ministry, then, by all means, I'm going to do it. So if you go over to YouTube, and we're going to be getting Worshipify updated as well, you'll see that we have our last edition of that really small series that we did on Onward Christian Soldiers, and that is Our Churches Are Not Hopeless. Our churches are not hopeless. And I truly believe that. I think that there are some churches that are hopeless, but not every single church, that we can salvage a few of these if we will start implementing some of the things I talk about in that sermon. So, if you haven't watched it, go watch it after this episode, if you would. Also, we went live on Friday, and we finished another addition to the Last Days series, New Testament Prophecy Part 2, The Kingdom Redefined. Did somehow Jesus come along and redefine the meaning of the kingdom? I don't think so. And so you can watch that, and we can do some good, solid Bible study there. Okay, now, it has been a weekend, all right? A lot of things have unfolded. A lot of things have transpired. Let's talk about it, okay? So first and foremost, when the hurricanes hit the East Coast, right, especially in the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, and Florida's about to get hit with another one, Hurricane Milton, I believe, I was trying to give the federal government the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why I ever do these things, but I thought, trying to be as unbiased as I can. A lot of people were quick to say, hey, where's FEMA? Where's the support? It seems like these people are off on their own, and it's a bunch of private people trying to help them. Now, truth be told, I'm for small government, so if there wasn't a Department of FEMA, well then fine, okay, let the private people do their thing. But if you're going to have a federal government, and supposedly we're paying taxes to FEMA, which is supposed to be this service that the federal government guarantees that there's this money that's in reserve and these resources in reserve to help us, then come on now. If we're going to have to pay the money, we better get some benefit out of it. This is a very one-sided relationship here. Well, guess what? FEMA was kind of delayed. Took them about a week, really, before they got out there. And so now it seems like they're almost blocking private people from helping. And if FEMA was doing an incredible job, that's one thing, but doesn't seem like they're doing that great of a job. As a matter of fact, it seems like they are actually being being rather counterproductive in some ways. They've actually been trying to stop some of the private aid, whether that is private pilots that are trying to come in to aid and assist. And also our FEMA resources have said we have enough money to give, every family affected, or every person, depending on how they worded that, $750. Well, you and I know today in Kamala Harris's economy, $750 is, pocket change. It won't even pay you, it won't pay a mortgage in today's time. So that means nothing. $750 is useless. And yet at the same time, though, we were able to approve sending millions of dollars to Lebanon. So that comes from the Daily Wire here. Kamala Harris, there's a nice photo of her. That's about her normal face, though, for the most part. Was absolutely involved in the administration's plan to send aid to not North Carolina, not South Carolina, not Georgia, not Florida. No, to Lebanon. As a matter of fact, some $150 million to Lebanon. What is going on? All right, we have American people who have been killed. All right, they are killed. They are in the ruins of what used to be homes and towns and bodies unaccounted for. Families who have had their houses completely destroyed. They have nowhere to live. They have no food. They have no clean water. And yet, FEMA is already telling us they're starting to run low on funds. Now, it also is apparent that many FEMA employees, when the mysterious Maui fires were occurring, remember those fires that seemed to take out everything except for the Obama's house? Well, they were staying in 5-star resorts in Hawaii. Sounds like a great time. So the money's running out for FEMA. We only have, about $750 that we can send each person who is, their lives have been destroyed and lost loved ones. And yet we have over $150 million that we're going to ship to people in the Middle East. This is this is the epitome of the Biden-Harris administration, okay? Sending aid to everybody, sending money, writing checks to everybody, except for American citizens. I hope that North Carolina remembers this. I hope that Georgia remembers this when the election comes around. Like I said, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt early on and say, hold on now, sometimes we can be quick to bring accusations and complaints when maybe we need to be realistic. Come on now, these aid operations take time, catastrophes cause issues, there's logistics, there's planning, there's resources, all those things to keep in mind. And yet, all the more it's proving that I don't know if there's a single thing that the Biden administration has been competent at except writing checks and sending them to other countries, as well as opening the border for everybody to come through. Now, there was a little bit of pushback. The Biden-Harris administration tried to say, hold on now, our funds are depleted in FEMA because Trump was using FEMA money to handle migrants. Now, that's about all they tried to word it as. Let's just consider what Trump was trying to do. Trump was trying to secure the border. He was trying to make sure that we could actually detain a lot of these people that had crossed illegally instead of just releasing them into the interior. FEMA, what is the acronym for FEMA? Federal something disaster. Well, let's see. There's no D in the word. FEMA acronym. The Federal Emergency Management Agency. Okay. Federal Emergency Management Agency. That's the meaning of FEMA. So we have way too many agencies that have acronyms, and it's ridiculous. We can't be expected to know them all. We have a wide open border, right? Trump comes into office. Obama is being extremely laxed on the border policy, not as much as Biden and Harris have, but still very laxed. You're being flooded with people that are not from your country. That sounds to me like an emergency. And so it needs to be managed. And if you have an agency that has been appointed to manage emergencies, guess what? You do need to send some funds that way. If you wouldn't have had the border wide open and we wouldn't have been overrun, then maybe we wouldn't have needed to use the FEMA funds, the FEMA resources for that. But with that being said, Trump has not been president for 3.5 years. Are you saying that the FEMA funds had been so depleted, you did not have time to restore, replenish the funds for FEMA during that time? How absurd is this? All right. I fully believe that this administration believes that you are incredibly ignorant, incompetent, and incapable of thinking logically. All right. So the people of the East Coast, North Carolina, South Carolina, I'm not really worried about South Carolina. North Carolina is kind of on the bubble, though, whether or not they're going to go red or blue in November. Georgia's on the bubble as well. Virginia, it'd be nice if you guys could actually start using your brains and pulling some weight here. It's a shame that Virginia, kind of the picture of the American colonies, right, the revolutionists, you have become so spineless. Maybe, just maybe, Glenn Youngkin can secure the election rules to where maybe you have a chance. Keep all this in mind when you vote in November, or if you've already started sending in your ballots, because people all are already early voting in many places. Bad choices have consequences. That is the title of the show. Bad choices have consequences. You can happy talk your way through it. You may vote for Kamala Harris because you want your first female president. You may like Joe Biden just because, hey, it's old Joe, and Donald Trump says mean things, and he says stuff on Twitter that I don't like. Stop whining, all right? Your bad choices are going to actually have serious ramifications, okay? All of you single mothers out there who want your first female president, well, I hope that you're willing to bear the consequences of your sons having to go and fight in World War III, because bad choices actually matter, okay? And I say single mothers because they're the voting bloc that tends to be more Democratic, all right? That they support Kamala Harris more. Married women, not so much, all right? Married women actually have families, and they are more conservative, and they're more likely to go to church and all those things, all right? Just looking at the polling data and the statistics over here. So we have FEMA, who is not actually sending, the support that they really should be, even though Kamala Harris said that she was going to be supporting the people in the Carolinas and Georgia, those affected by the hurricane, and Florida's about to get hit with Hurricane Milton. They are actively trying to block private citizens from helping, because of course they are, because the federal government cannot stand private citizens doing anything. They think that the government should be in complete control of everything that's going on. But not only that, while the Carolinas were flooded, Kamala Harris was a guest on a podcast. This is also coming from the Daily Wire here. I have not listened to this podcast, nor do I want to. But Kamala Harris goes on this explicit podcast called Call Her Daddy, right? So that's super weird already. And while there's more than 200 Americans killed in the Carolinas, Kamala Harris goes on this podcast to discuss perverted and degenerate things. From what I understand, once again, I didn't know this podcast existed before Kamala Harris went on it, but apparently it's some podcast that is basically devoted to discussing the most disgusting things that you could imagine. And I imagine she went on and talked about, the importance of being able to kill your babies, and how the idea of prudence and modesty is so terrible, and we need to liberate everybody to just be as animalistic in your desires and yearnings as possible. And that just absolutely encapsulates everything that liberal ideology is. Here's the thing. People want to jump all over Trump and say how terrible Trump is, right? Oh, Trump's moral character. Yeah, okay, sure, probably. He was a Hollywood star, celebrity, right? Hollywood stars and celebrities are not known for having the most utmost moral character, right? However, what does he promote? What does he stand for? In his rhetoric, in his platform, he is pro-family, okay? He is pro-family. Kamala Harris, in her election rhetoric, is trying to paint herself as pro-family only as long as you want to have a family. If you don't want to have a family, then you can kill your babies and not worry about it, right? Trump is not going on podcasts and openly endorsing an anti-family and perverse worldview. Kamala Harris is. She openly affiliates with these ideologies. The left wing will say that Trump is a hypocrite because he'll speak out supposedly as a conservative, and yet he's been married multiple times and has different children with different wives, things like that. The individual man, yes, he's a flawed person, but in his actual conduct, as far as what he is supporting, what does he stand for, right? And it is the more conservative, pro-family, pro-traditional values platform. Trump is not going on these podcasts promoting the perversion and degenerate behavior. Kamala Harris is. Kamala Harris is no moderate, and she does not represent what most of America is. She's just not, okay? Now, they have been lying to the American people for some time, trying to paint her as this, but look at her life. Now, we could go all the way back to her early days and her affiliating with Willie Brown and all that. Now she got her start. And if she does get elected and she becomes the first female president, the irony of it, right? The left wing is always about how, we want women who have earned it, have their own merit, and they reject the idea of a woman, manipulating men to get their way to the top, right? And yet, if they elect Kamala Harris as the first female president, that's exactly what they're going to get. But even then, she has not had any children of her own. What's one of the funny things, right? They were calling her Mamala. She's had no children of her own. She knows nothing what it's like to raise children. And yet, she's going to speak to you and talk to you like she does, right? As if she has any authority on the matter. I don't know if she's been divorced or not, but she's been married to a man who has been divorced and apparently has treated his ex-girlfriends quite terribly. She has not lived the life of a picturesque American citizen and a normal American having a family, having children, any more than Trump has. And yet they want to try to paint her as the very normal lifestyle type person. And yet they want to vilify Trump. At least Trump has kids. I mean, Trump has a family. He has children. He at least knows a little bit what it's like to raise kids. I'm not saying that he has done the best job in the world, but probably what parent here would say they have done the best job of the world? All right. If you look at his sons, his sons are all pretty successful. They're Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., pretty manly men. They like hunting and shooting and all those things. But what has Kamala Harris done? This is where it is so infuriating. And the media have been so successful in lying to you over and over and over again. Kamala Harris is not this normal, average American person who has just found her way onto the stage. The media is absolutely lying to people day in and day out, and they have no idea what the reality is. So that's why you have to remind them. You have to remind people when they say they support Kamala Harris. If you know a Kamala Harris supporter and you ask them why, and they say, well, because she's not Trump. She hasn't had all these moral flaws in her character. You can say, excuse me? No moral flaws in her character at all? What makes her more fit to decide things for a family? She doesn't even have one, right? Other than her mother and I guess her sisters, I'm not sure what all siblings she has. What family does she really have? At least Trump has more a sense of what a family is than Kamala Harris. So this example of her going on this perverted podcast just shows you all the more that she is not the person that they are making her out to be. Now, something I do want to talk about is also the fact that this is the anniversary of the October 7th attack on Israel. And I remember a year ago from today when all this came out. It came out on, it happened, I think it happened on a Sabbath day, right, for the Jewish people. So it was Monday when we, got a lot of the reports of all this, some of it on Sunday as well. And I remember seeing some of the actual footage. And it's horrible, right? The things that have been done. And they want you to forget about it, okay? For every liberal media person that is very anti-Israel and only wants to paint the people of Gaza as the victims, they have completely forgotten what took place that day. Innocent Israelis and Americans as well, who were killed in the attack, who were abused, who have been taken hostage, and they're still hostages to this day, right? A year later. Electing bad leaders, electing bad politicians will affect not only you, but also people around the world. I will continue to say it until I am blue in the face. When Donald Trump was president, okay? When he was in office, you did not have a war in Ukraine, and you did not have war with Israel and other nations. You didn't have it, all right? These things did not exist. Who you choose to be your leader is absolutely going to affect the world. It does matter. You cannot just choose who you want and then expect everything to go just fine. What is the actual policies? Trump has said it many times that if he was in office, October 7th wouldn't have happened. That's very likely true. Very likely true. Because, for one, Hamas is funded by Iran. Iran was broke under Trump's administration. Yet, Biden gets power, Harris gets power, they come on the scene, they just start flooding them with cash, right? And guess what? You have the October 7th attack. And so, we can vote with what we want in our heart of hearts, or we can use some actual common sense. Look at the facts on the ground. This is going to really be, this election is going to be a major test to do people look around and pay attention to the facts, what's really happening, or do they just simply, are they just going to vote by what makes them feel good, right? And that's just like how our churches are today, right? People do not vote. People do not attend church. They do not go to congregations because they want logic and reasoning being taught from the pulpit and sound Bible doctrine. It's all fed by, do I like this preacher? Does he make me feel good? Does he act the way that I want him to? Regardless of as far as his knowledge of the scripture or what he teaches, does he say the things I want him to hear him say? Because that's what Kamala Harris does, right? And all these other politicians and conservative politicians, they have their own faults as well. But they will, give you what you want to hear. And yet, what's the substance behind it? We have to change what we value. Okay, our American society for too long have voted with their hearts. They need to start voting with your head, right? And unfortunately, the liberals have done a really good job of appealing to people that vote based upon emotions. There's one, if you look at the polling and the statistics, men are largely voting conservative. Women, especially single women, are largely voting liberal, right, for the Democratic Party. This gets to an important point. Churches today aren't appealing to men because men want logical Bible study, right? They want to discuss doctrine. They want actual biblical answers questioned, or biblical questions answered, I should say, or vice versa. The women will get on board with the men if the men will lead. They will get behind them and support them. I do believe that. All right? A woman who is wanting to fulfill her biblical role will get behind and support the men that are willing to step up and do their job. But men don't get that from churches. Churches are not worried about giving doctrinal teaching or really strong Bible study. They are all focused on the emotional appeal. Who does that appeal to? It appeals to the women in the congregation, those that are not being led by strong men. So they flock to the emotional appeal. They will feed off of it. If you compare the platforms that Trump is trying to present versus Harris, I'm not saying Trump is the perfect exemplary of everything that we need a politician to be, but he's saying, how were things 4 years ago? How far did your paycheck get you 4 years ago? Look around the world. What did things look like 4 years ago? Now compare them to today. Kamala Harris's plea is not one of logic and reasoning. It is an emotional plea. It's an emotional plea. We are trying to save women's lives. We're trying to save women's lives. Ignore the fact that a lot of the women that they will cite that needed abortion care, they died because of the abortion pill. Tim Walz in the vice presidential debate referenced a woman who died in Georgia. She died because she got the abortion pill, not because she couldn't get an abortion. She died because of the abortion. It's all an emotional appeal. They want to deport the migrants. Are you going to separate children from their parents? Trump is over here saying, we need to get rid of the criminals that are flooding across the border. Yes, but are you going to deport the parents and the babies? Are you going to separate the babies? It's an emotional appeal. It's an illogical appeal. An illogical appeal. Trump says we got to end this war between Russia and Ukraine. But are you going to let the Russians win? Are you going to let them win and march across Europe? They are speaking in the emotional, hyperbole, and Trump is speaking in the rational, the reasonable, the logical. They bring up January 6th, democracy almost died. Well, guess what? Trump lost and democracy didn't die. It wasn't the end. Trump left office. They'll say, will you at least say you lost the election? We're not worried about that election. It's in the past. It doesn't matter now. We got to win this one. You didn't say you lost. How dare you? Trump's Hitler, right? That is the emotional, illogical, irrational appeal. And guess what? If you don't have women who have male leadership, they will allow the emotional appeal or the emotional pleas of the Democratic Party to win the day. We've got to raise our daughters to think for themselves, not be driven by emotion. All right? And we need to encourage them to find a good man. And if you are a daughter and you're listening, okay, I know that good men are scarce and they're hard to find. Don't settle for something less, okay? Do not settle. It's not your job to fix a boy, all right? Y'all think I'm being hard on the ladies today. Okay, I'm being hard on the men too. All right, girls, it's not your job. Your boyfriend, your husband, he's not your project, okay? If your husband's not doing his job, you better encourage him to seek out men's guidance and wisdom if you've already married a boy who is incompetent, okay? But the best thing is, don't marry the boy that's incompetent. Don't look at him and say, oh, he's, I can make him into everything that he should be. No, you can't, because guess what? That was his daddy's job. And to a degree, it was his mama's job. It was the men's job to make sure he grew up to be a man. That was his job. Or it was the man's job in his life. That is not your job. You need him to be the leader and the provider. That's what you need. He does not need to be your little project. Because guess what? He's only going to drag you down with him. Because he's not man enough for the job. Okay? He's only going to drag you down. And we have not been teaching our daughters that. And probably that's because many of them have, for one, bought the lie that's on like Hollywood and everything, right? All the movies and books, it's always, there's this guy, he's got issues, and the girl's trying to fix him. Okay? That's how they're sold. That's what they think relationships are supposed to be. Because every single male in a movie or a book nowadays that is competent is actually vilified in the end. Every single time. They're vilified. They're made out to be the bad guy. That is not true. The man that is competent, that takes care of his family, that takes charge, is not oppressive. He is doing what he is supposed to be doing. Some of our other girls, they have never had a good example of a father in the house. So they don't know what a relationship's supposed to be like. They've never seen it. So you can't blame them for that. And, girls have that naturally maternal, loving nature. And so you need to direct that towards your children, right? Or be involved in some kind of church ministry where you can nurture children and you can healthily carry out that maternal instinct as it's supposed to be. Your maternal instinct is not for your husband or your boyfriend, all right? That's not it. That's not what it's supposed to look like. If the man that you're interested in, your boyfriend, or even if it's your husband, if he is not competent enough to maintain his emotions most of the time and act like a man most of the time when he needs to act like a man, get away from him. Find somebody else. Okay? And the answer, oh, but he's cute, mama, is not good enough. All right? Stop. We've got to change your picture of what you should desire in a man. All right? Your desire should not be this emotionally unstable little boy. All right? You've got to change what you want. And you can do that. It's a fight, right? Young men, okay, we struggle with that. What do we want? For some reason, our natural desire is the girls that want the attention, right? Because they're always, dressing themselves up in ways that get your attention. They're probably trying to show too much skin, all those things. Young men are like toddlers. Okay, you flash something shiny in front of them, and they'll easily get distracted. What you're looking for is a girl that's had a good dad raising her and a good mother raising her. The father giving her the example of what a man's supposed to be, and the mother giving her an example of what a woman's supposed to be. That's the girl you got to look for. You got to find those. Not the ones that are on social media posting pictures of themselves to get likes and comments and attention. It's not what you want. Okay, the girl that's texting 20 different boys, stay away from her. Find the girl that's more interested in, riding horses or playing basketball, okay? I found a sport girl, right? She was more interested in playing basketball than dating boys in the day, all right? That's what you got to find. Girls, stop looking for the boy that looks like he should be on some teenage TV show, right? Some silly drama. Find a boy who can change his own oil. Speaking of which, I got to go change my oil pretty soon this week. Find a boy who can skin a deer. Find a boy who is interested in doing manly things, and find a boy who has had a good dad in his life. Or if his dad has not been a good dad, at least has a man in his life that has shown him how to be a man. And if you're a man here today listening, are you being that man for any of the boys that you know? All right? First of all, are you being that man for your sons? That's convicting to me because I know I'm not always the man that I should be as an example for my sons. But are you trying? Are you finding those young men to be that example for them? That's how we got to fix this thing, right? If we are going to make good decisions in both our churches as well as the leaders of our country, it's got to start in the homes. Because the truth is, and especially if we go back to this example of girls and the boys that they are trying to fix, if he is you can know pretty quick, all right? You can know pretty quick. If he is still acting like a silly, dumb teenage boy and he's in his 20s, guess what? He's probably going to he's going to act like a silly little teenage boy his entire life. He just is. Now, I'm not saying everybody. Some can change, but it's few and far between. But guess what? If he does change, it's not your job to change him. If he matures and grows up, he'll mature and grow up. But he's never going to mature and grow up with you. Because guess what? It takes a man to do that. I know a man who would probably have said when he was in his early 20s, he was an irresponsible guy that acted like a dumb teenage boy. He would admit it. And he would say two major things changed. He had men praying for him, and he had men counseling him. That's what changed him. It wasn't some girl who took it on her responsibility, right, to change him, to make him her little, DIY project. It's got to start with families. When we summed up our Onward Christian Soldiers series, that was our focus. It has to start at home. The husbands have to start being the husbands. The wives have to start being the wives. We need men leading the church. We need men leading the families. Because men do, they're able to be the women, and they can do their job, and it works very, very well. We have so many boys today who don't have fathers as an example of how to be a man. No wonder they don't know how to be a man. All they've ever been around is women. And guess what? Our girls have been around their mothers who couldn't just do the job of being the mother. They've been having to try to do both jobs. If you try to make somebody do more than what they were meant to, it's going to take away from how good they're doing in their specific job, right? There's a reason why every single job has assistants. It's not the nurse's job to do the job of the doctor, and it's not the doctor's job to do the job of the nurse. They are compatible and help each other in those ways. If you have a welder, guess what? There's also the welder's assistant. Or there's the welder and there is the one responsible for cutting the angles, right? The welder's job is to worry about welding, okay? And so we need to understand that we cannot expect women to do everything. The men have their responsibility, they have their role to play. I just looked at our data here. Looks like we're struggling a little bit with some of our connection. What I want you to do for me is if we start skipping, if we start glitching a little bit, I want you to let me know, and then we can fix this thing and shut it down. It looks like we're running okay, but I'll have to talk to Nathan. We've got a few little bugs here to sort out. So we're going to be following how the week goes. I'm probably going to go ahead and wrap it up a little bit early here today. I'll see how y'all are doing, I'll say hi to you. Maybe that'll be a way that we can continue this on just a little bit. Ken says, Guten Tag, everyone. Casino is 10 miles in the rear view on your way to Tulsa. Okay, need some good entertainment. Well, hopefully I provided it for you a little bit. We'll have to work on sorting out our connection a little bit. It's like when we try to do the Worshipifying YouTube dual stream, we still struggle just a little. That's interesting. Carol's on today. Carol, great to have you. Appreciate you. Rick, thank you for joining us, sir. On today, Mom, good to see you. Nancy, thank you for joining us. Is on. And Kristen got to hop on a little bit. Kristen, thank you. Great to have you on as well. All right, so here's the plan for the week. Let's see here as we're getting ready to close out our show today. We're going to be doing another Philippians verse-by-verse study on Wednesday. I've got to get more of those uploaded for you. I am going to be working on trying to get Starlink installed at the church. Okay, Starlink installed at the church. Talk to Nathan. We're going to try to get this figured out. So Nathan, if you're watching, my cache is currently full, and I'm running about 3.48. You'll know what that means. And so it looks like we've got a little bit of the kinks to still maybe sort out, okay? But with that, appreciate each and every one of you as we are continuing to work on getting all this sorted out, taken care of. You have a great rest of your Monday, and be sure to share somebody, the channel. That way maybe they can get some good Bible content, right? Shields and Arrows, it's a great opportunity for me to rant and rave about stuff, and I know you enjoy it, but don't neglect the Bible studies, okay? I think those are the most important part of this whole ministry, all right? So we'll be back. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. We'll get all the technological kinks sorted out, okay? Thank you all so much. Take care.